All right, so this video could be long, it could be short. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to structure it. However, why figure out why to structure it when I have all of the structure I need right here, going paragraph by paragraph, responding to this tweet longer by John Larson, or JayBiebs on Twitter. He is a person at Respawn. When we go through the tweet longer, you'll see what his position is. However, he talks to the community a lot. He gets a lot of community feedback. So he put this out on his own, talking about, as you can see in the title, movement tech and mobility in Apex. So let's start from the top. Tap strafing is a term associated with different sorts of movement depending on who you ask. Internally, we generally use it to describe what many associate with scroll wheel strafing. What that means, if you are unfamiliar with the term, is essentially you keybind the forward motion, so like the W on your keyboard, you would also put a secondary keybind on your scroll wheel. So whenever you would scroll down or scroll up on your scroll wheel, it'll input a lot of forward movements or a lot of forward inputs. And what that allows you to do in Apex is, if you're in the air, every time a forward input goes through, it also lets you turn faster. So using the A and D, or left and right on your keyboard, it allows you to circle and strafe and turn very heavily in the air, almost easily 180 degrees in some situations. So it allows for a lot heavier and a lot more emphasized movement in the game, which is good because Apex standout feature really is its movement comparatively to every other BR. But we'll get into it as we go on. But it's usable mainly for mouse and keyboard. You can kind of make it work on controller, but it's not really a thing on controller. Remove tap strafing come across pretty aggressively for movement and for movement enthusiasts. To be more explicit, this change targets multiple rapid directional commands after jumping. Movement should feel unchanged for controllers and mouse and keyboard players who hadn't heard the term tap strafe until yesterday, which, if you're a part of the community of watching these streams, it's near impossible for you to not know what tap strafing is, because it's been around and been going on for a decent amount of time, as well as been in streams so much that people know about it. A lot of people know about it. Most people do. If you don't know about it, you're not paying attention, realistically, in the game. Thanks to the work of a couple of our engineers, this is now easily tunable on the fly, and we have the ability to iterate on or even revert it completely without a client update. This is good. Having tools like this is very nice, and having the ability to tweak it is pretty good. But it's not in the game yet. They said it was going to come in a later patch, the removal of it. But because it's not in the game yet, it's really hard to judge what it's going to be like until we get to touch it, right? Until you get to actually put hands on with this fucking thing, there's no way to know if it's good, if it's bad. The goal is to remove some of the sharpness and momentum conservation around 90% plus angles. So 90 degrees, so turning 90 degree angles, 180 degree, you know. That's what I'm thinking when I use the term tap strafe through this post. Things like wall bounce, redirect onto the same wall should feel unchanged, but movement afforded by scroll wheel strafing should be removed. I don't believe so. If it was causing an issue with the game engine to have that many inputs allowable, like if it was crashing the game because of all of these inputs, that's one thing. Like if it's that kind of a problem, but it's not. It's a skill thing. You have the ability in the skill to be able to use this and to use it effectively, as well as being able to shoot people while you're using it and doing these fucking 180 turns in the air is pretty hard. It's very, very hard to actually be able to get offensive benefits of this. It's mainly a defensive tool for a lot of people. And those who can actually use it as an offensive tool, it's fucking cool to watch. It's really cool to watch. People look at someone doing shit like this and go, I want to play Apex and learn how to do this, which is why I think it's a benefit to the game. Tap strafing is something I've thought about nearly every day since seeing it the first time. The player in me loves the idea of for it for skill expression, a monkey would be a better mouse and keyboard player than me, but I took some time to experiment with scroll wheel strafing in particular. Felt the dopamine rush, I thought about the outplay opportunities, and I love turning into stream to see flashy plays. However, my designer brain started to churn, and the more I saw, the more I felt this mechanic seemed like the forbidden fruit. This is the wrong way to go about it. This is really, really the wrong way to go about it. Something like tap strafing, like I've said, is a strength of your game. Movement is the key in Apex. It really is. The ability to use your movement effectively because of positioning and all other kinds of things is absolutely, absolutely key in Apex. And seeing it as a forbidden fruit, I think, is the wrong way to look at it. Because instead of allowing your game to flourish, you are holding it back. And you're making it more and more bland, I guess. Because this is something that you would see in a change. Like Warframe, for example. It's when in Warframe, if you slide, crouch, and then jump, you do what's called a bullet jump. And bullet jumping was an iteration off of an ability called coptering, which is essentially a move people were using that wasn't necessarily intended, but they were using this move to move faster through the levels. And because they went, oh, that's a benefit, that's a boon, that's an interesting use of this mechanic, they put it in the game officially through their own means. So seeing it as a forbidden fruit and not allowing different tech and iterations of tech to flourish, I think is a problem. Like, there's some stuff that is a bit, I don't know how I would call it, but there's some things that you could say are game breaking and should be gone. But things that increase the skill floor or the ceiling of the game, I think are better to look at in a positive light comparatively. Excuse me, my nose is sniffly. Let's table that for a second and dive right into the spiciest topic of Apex. The mouse and keyboard versus controller debate. Oh, baby, I'm about to have some fucking words on this. I can't speak to one's superiority over the other. They have their pros and cons. For the record, though, across MMR, levels, rank, you name it, the difference in weapon performance is not nearly as great as someone would believe. Pred-level controllers are not beating out Pred-level mouse and keyboard Prowler players in close range on any sort of crazy rate. So that means that they're either equal or controllers are winning slightly. And that's fucking insane. That's disturbing as a PC player to hear that news. That is the line that has bothered me the most about this entire twit longer, because aim assist is not a natural competitive thing. It's just not. If everybody is on the same playing field and using the same tools, like you would see in the old Halo championships, everybody was playing on console, everybody was playing on controller, they're at an equal playing field, right? But because Apex is doing this weird controller and mouse and keyboard in the competitive scene at a top level hybrid, it's fucked up. And the fact that controllers can even get close to beating out PC players is frankly absurd. And the reasoning for that is the aim assist or bullet magnetism or whatever the fuck you want to call it on controllers is a built-in created accessibility feature for consoles so their games wouldn't feel like shit. Have you ever tried to play, or I guess you can't even try to because they probably have it baseline everywhere, right? I don't know of games that let you turn it off. But playing an FPS without aim assist on a console would feel like trash. Enemies would run by your crosshair, your shots wouldn't hit because your aim isn't sticking to them, you don't have nearly the level of accuracy that you would get with a mouse, so they had to create aim assist as an accessibility feature to console. It had to be made for it so the games felt good to play. That's why it's there. That's why bullet magnetism is there. It's so the games feel good, right? So when you bring a tool like aim assist into the PC genre and allow it to play alongside mouse and keyboard where there is zero aim assist, and mouse and keyboard players have 100% control over their aim and have to practice it religiously to be good at it. The problem with aim assist is software picks up on shit faster than the human eye can see, dude. It's literally a robot playing the game for you, and that's at the level where it's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. I believe Shroud said it best, honestly, when he said that while it's cool that mouse and keyboard and controller are playing at the top level in Apex, at the level of input between mouse and controller, at that level of input, there should be a divide. Because yeah, there's pros and cons to either side, but fuck, dude, I'm getting they turned off the ability to remove crossplay in Apex. Apex, released as a PC game, primarily, could have been partially designed for controllers, for consoles later on, but it was released first as a PC game, and it was fucking great. Now they had a crossplay when they went to consoles. Cool. And then they turned the ability to turn crossplay off. They removed it for PC. I have to play with controller players. And the thing is, because aim assist is prolific, and people are on PC are using controllers because how good the aim assist is, I don't know if I died to a controller or I died to a guy with the mouse and keyboard half the time, because the little icon that shows console or controller or PC doesn't fucking mean anything. It doesn't mean anything when half of these motherfuckers are all on controller and I'm getting laser beamed like they're pred, right? A bit of backstory on the kind of player I am is, while I never achieved greatness and glory in Overwatch, multiple times I was in the top 10 of players. 4,700, that sort of range of players. I would never have been able to get there if I was fucking trash, all right? I just wanted to put a baseline of my potential ability and recognition as a player before the Brigitte, before the fucking Diva, before all of the new bullshit that Overwatch did that made me quit that fucking game. Before all of that bullshit, I was pretty fucking good. So I understand, even at a team level, I understand shooters, right? So controllers just drive me insane, because somebody who, because I haven't played FPS in such a long time, yeah, I'm not the best player ever anymore. I'm not that great. I'm pretty average or above average. I'm getting laser beamed like I'm playing against other professional players in Overwatch, right? I'm getting demolished by people who have no business even being in my fucking sight lines. They shouldn't even be in my lobby. But because they're playing on controller, the issue with controller is it allows the skill floor of the player to be so astronomically high with the execution level that you need to be, that a lot of these controller players are getting up to levels they don't deserve to be at, but they're crutched up there. They're perched up there on top of something that they don't deserve to be there, right? Now, granted, there are people who play on controller that are really good. There's people in the professional scene of Apex that play on controller and mouse and keyboard to prove how good they are, right? They're proving it. So, altogether, okay, where was I going with this? I don't even remember. All I wanted to say was controllers are a very frustrating thing to talk about because they are created with an accessibility feature that don't feel like I'm losing to the player. I feel like I'm losing to the software, that I'm losing to the robot. Because while controller players can learn how to move and aim on a controller, right? They're not the one aiming. Some of the time they are. But they're responding to how the controller and how the software moves. So because it moves faster than the human eye, they're generally allowed to keep their tracking is considerably better than a mouse and keyboard player, because there's infinite amount of factors that make it so when you're tracking a target on mouse and keyboard, you need to think, is he going to move left or right? Is he going to crouch? Is he going to speed up? Is he going to slow down? Is he going to use a movement ability? I don't know. So you're constantly, if this was the target, you're constantly off, okay, back, okay, back on the target, okay, he's going over, okay, crouch, okay, down to the target, right? That's what a mouse and keyboard player is dealing with. But a controller player is seeing this, oh, they respond to it. They respond to it. They respond to it. They're responding to the movement that the controller and the software is producing. So they're allowed to stick on their targets like fucking glue. And it's why people call it aimbot, because it feels like you're playing against someone with aimbot because of how strong the aim assist is. And you can see videos of people walking back and forth in front of a crosshair. So they walk and the cross goes, and then stops, right? And then stops. But that small amount of time where it follows the player is enough for a person with mediocre reaction time to adjust to it, and before it falls off, retrack onto the target with some accuracy. And if they overcommit to it, then the aim assist is there once again to try and pull back onto the target, so they're not just going like this after it follows and goes over. They're going and then it's checking out and going right back to the target. It's so fucking frustrating to play against, because I, like a lot of people saying, it's not even on a skill level. Like I don't feel like I'm losing to the other player. I feel like I'm losing to software. When Halo Infinite announced that they would be crossplay, controller PC couldn't turn it off, and there'd be aim assist, I didn't even touch the game. I didn't even download it. I saw that, I heard that, and went, fuck this. That's how frustrating it is. And through the entire Battle Royale market right now, crossplay is a big deal. And guess what? So is aim assist. And I have literally not had a single enjoyment, fuck. I have not been able to enjoy the Battle Royale genre as a whole for a long time because of aim assist. And there are going to be people that say, well, you're just shit and you should get better, blah, blah. And you know what? Yeah. If I want to be good, I should improve. I should practice, right? I'm not disputing that. All I'm saying is I'm not losing to the enemy player. I'm losing to the software in their fucking hands. And that's what pisses me off. But anyway, let's continue before I keep losing my fucking mind. Data aside, data on a large scale should never be taken into consideration for competitive level tuning, because it's always going to be fucking wrong. It's always going to be wrong. People who like the one-trick characters skew the data. Like, there's so many issues in skewing of data. Fuck it. We can assume pro players with thousands of hours of playtime have legitimate concerns. I'm not writing these off. To quote the designer behind Apex's aim assist, Ramy Vinson, conceptually, aim assist sits at the input layer above balance design. Using it as a difficulty lever is bad. Aim assist is for accessibility, and yes, it is easy for us to accidentally make it too good, and where the line is can be up to debate. Once again, split it at the level of input, because we want everybody on the same playing field. And for most Battle Royale genre games, the close to mid-range fights are where it's most important. That's where the bread is made. And in this game currently, controllers might as well be 99.9% wheat, because they're making all the fucking bread in that level of play, because it's absolutely disgusting how strong aim assist is when you know how to use it. Like I said, granted, knowing how to use aim assist is a skill. People might say it's not, but it is. However, because it's based at the input level, I don't think it should exist alongside mouse and keyboard. And the ability to remove controller players from your game was removed for very obvious business reasons. As Apex and its players evolve, it is only prudent for us to continue to evaluate whether or not aim assist is too good. When I see a top level controller player saying they'd be alright with nerfing aim assist, I definitely take note. Players should not be forced to use a specific input type, and if I see players converting out of what they think is a necessity, basically playing controller because they think it's too good, I would 100% be concerned. In fact, I'm meeting with CGE, weapons, and analytics teams this week to take a temperature reading on the situation. Which, to me, says that they haven't been for a while. Because this is just really... this is just biased by me because I'm annoyed at controllers. 100% bias on my part. But whenever anybody in any corporate situations says, yeah guys, within this week we're gonna take a look at that issue you've been talking about, I think it's bullshit. And it might not be. You might be having those meetings, there might be talks, things might happen, things might not. But I am so cynical in regards to the corporate structure of this garbage that I see this is bullshit. Because guess what? Console probably makes up a majority of the player base. It probably does. And they probably spend a lot on console as well. So because it's a majority, and it's a majority of your spender, maybe it's a great business decision to keep them happy. But that's another issue, right? That's another issue. I think about some of the input layer differences between mouse and keyboard, looting speed and strafing, range performance, movement capabilities, and think that it's a bummer we can't have perfect gameplay parity. It's not a bummer, dude. It's not a bummer. It's your choice. It's your choice. If you wanted perfect gameplay parity, you split the inputs, they don't play together on a stage. It's your fucking choice. Maybe not yours specifically, but it is a choice of the company to not. To the point where crossplay is unallowed on PC. I can't turn crossplay off on PC. And I used to be able to. And I used to not have to play with consoles in the first place. It is a conscious business decision to force that interaction. So don't call it a bummer, because it's not a bummer. It's a choice. That's impossible as long as both input types exist. No, it's not. Split them. It's also the reason why we're hesitant when people ask for separate Valve jetpack keybinds so they can wall bounce, for example. What may seem like a simple quality of life change can give a controller player a bit of FOMO. Wow, it's almost like the controller player is getting a lot more consideration here. That's running devil's advocate, obviously. And to be fair, when you're working in a business, you have to consider the monetary ramifications of balance. You do. You just have to. That's how a business works. As much as it sucks, that's how a business works. Me, I say, controller, fuck them. If they want to bring their piece of plastic onto the battlefield of a PC game, if they want to bring that here, they should be on the same playing field. No aim assist. If you want to play on the PC, you don't get aim assist. How many people do you think would be playing on controller on PC if they didn't get aim assist? How many? Because the answer is maybe like 5. Maybe. Unfortunately, the asks of increasing aim assist at range or improving the looting flow on controller are not as easy as changing a couple numbers. Well, Increasing aim assist at range, it's just the numbers change. The looting flow, however, you are correct. That is a system interface issue. But that's also an issue because controller is not meant to have that level of quick access and information. It's why when you pause a controller game or a console game, when you pause it or when you go to a menu, the game pauses because you literally, unless you're a speedrunner, can't do shit quick enough that you need to have the game paused. Otherwise, you just couldn't do it. Going back to it, it would feel like shit because it wouldn't work correctly on console. It's another accessibility feature of the platform. Some things are deeply ingrained in muscle memory where it's not worth touching. Others require a lot more resources to make sure we get it right. We always have our eyes peeled for opportunities for improvement and try and jump on them when we have time to do our due diligence. This whole paragraph to me is like nothing. Like the deeply ingrained muscle memory of aim assist, like fuck, like no, stop it. No. Like people are asking to increase aim assist at range because they can't keep up with mouse and keyboard at range, but range doesn't matter that much in Apex. It just doesn't. You maybe have, honestly, it might be optimal to run 2 controller players and a guy with the mouse and keyboard. And all that guy with the mouse and keyboard does is farm shields for your controller players to fight with. That's how fucked up the situation is right now. When people say, gee dang it, they don't say it that way. Respawn's balancing decisions cater to controller players. The best answer I have is when it comes to accessibility, we often must consider controller players given the constraints compared to mouse and keyboard. But accessibility does not equal balanced design, and it's a straw man argument to treat it as such. Here we can go to Google's to make sure I don't fuck this up. What is a straw man argument? A straw man is a form of argument and an informal fallacy of having the impression of refuting an argument where the real, where the real subject of the argument was not addressed or refuted, but replaced with a false one. One who engages in the fallacy is to be attacking the straw man. I'd need to look at it. I haven't actually looked into the straw man shit, so I don't fully grasp it because I don't like pay attention to that much, I'll be honest with you. But like he says here, when it comes to accessibility, we must consider controller players. And the problem is you don't. Right back to just split the inputs. You don't have to worry about how strong controller is or how controller is versus PC when you don't have to balance between them. It's like trying to say, oh man, I'm going to balance this bottle of honey. I need to balance the sugar content of this bottle of honey with a drop of sugar-free A&W root beer. Like you're working with 2 different things here, man. It doesn't work. It's never worked. Stop trying to make it work, because it doesn't. It is a business decision, and it would be stupid to believe otherwise. And I understand they're a business. They need to make money. But, like, come on. This is why I believe tap strafing exists solely as a design problem. Dude, the amount of people that love tap strafing because of how cool it makes your game look. Even a mouse and keyboard only Apex world, or a scenario where controller, mouse, and keyboard could tap strafe the same, I don't, like, even in this sentence, he can't just talk about what if it was just mouse and key. He has to bring up controller. That's how ingrained it is. I don't believe it would be a healthy change with the freedom it currently allows. As someone who prides myself in my movement, albeit limited controller, he's a controller player. However, I'm not taking that into consideration with my refuting of the things he's saying here. I gotta say no to the forbidden fruit. This is a much more interesting debate, and I welcome other opinions. Well, it is my opinion that you are taking away from the game with this form of change, because it takes away directly from what makes the game great, what makes the game cool. People, if you dumb this game down to fucking Call of Duty, people like Asu wouldn't be as prevalent, wouldn't be as prominent. Yeah, he's good, but he's good because he's able to use the game systems, right? His movement is clean. His shots are flashy. He's able to do this because he's able to get out of crazy situations in a 1v2 scenario because of his movement. Apex is a movement game, and to dumb it down to some Call of Duty level garbage is just gonna make it worse. Please don't make your game worse. Please make it better. The first issue, it's highly inaccessible. By inaccessible, we mean it's an opaque technique that's practically impossible to learn organically. And the most egregious example require a strange keybind. Dude, the customization that a mouse and keyboard provides to all levels of video games allows iteration for different systems. So this is just another controller issue again. Okay, let's democratize it. Now, most decent players can start incorporating tap strafing into their gameplay. That brings us to the second point. Tap strafes are being used in engagements, but they have terrible readability and limited counterplay. Path graps and Octane pads aside, I have seen clips of players breaking ankles with victims, including high-skill players, at a loss of what to do. Like, yeah, but here's the problem. They're at a loss of what to do because they're playing against it improperly. If someone starts jumping around in your fucking face, spinning like a fucking top, they're not going to be able to shoot you effectively like that. So all you have to do is wait until they try and stop their ridiculous level of movement and shoot them. And then, once they turn to shoot you and start moving in a predictable pattern, then you shoot. Most of the time, people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Because they just empty their clip, and by the time their clip's empty, the guy goes, oh, they wasted their ammo, turns around within that, like, a third or half of a second, and then gets another, what, like, 0.6, 0.5, maybe a half a second, maybe a little more of free advantage because they wasted their clip. That's on the other player to learn what to do against this technique. That's not on the technique itself. While it's not terribly prevalent, I'm concerned this could continue to evolve as more players adapt and further develop their mechanics. So man, it'd be a fucking shame for people to improve, right? Don't want that. To those clinging to the no counterplay or readability points, the team working on improving the wallhack meta or busy VFX are different than the devs monitoring movement mechanics. So what he says by the wallhack meta is essentially it's just short cooldown wall hacks is all it is. And I personally have been a proponent of literally never having wallhack as an ability in a game ever. The only potential wallhack ability that might be seen as acceptable is Sova's Sonic Arrow, because you can see it, it makes a sound as it's traveling, and you can just shoot it before it even goes off, right? So Sova players have to figure out all these funky angles and non-traditional spots and all this shit to get that much information out of players that just go and then shoot it before it's gone. It's a good information tool, but wall hacks shouldn't exist in competitive FPS. They just shouldn't. When a feature such as wall hacking is literally considered a cheat, like a straight up cheat in almost every FPS that has been prevalent ever, I don't think it should fucking exist in an FPS now, should it? Why are we adding cheats as features? People were already pissed off enough about Soldier 76's auto aim visor. Like, now fucking Widowmaker's wall hacks in this game. Seer fucking wall hacks, Bloodhound scans. Like, fuck, dude. Can you get a little more creative than the ability to wall hack? Like, come on, man. Such a fucking shitty, non-interesting ability that's overpowered. Just get rid of it. Just fucking get rid of it. Fortunately, in my role, I get to give my 2 cents. In most of these areas, they all fall under the purview of live balance in some degree. Quality of life changes come in waves, and we generally don't like holding something up if we have a fix ready to go. Regardless of optics, it's something I think about, but I don't lose sleep over. The third point, which is the most problematic, it's how it's exacerbated by movement abilities. I can buy that tap strafe at normal velocity and a gunfight occurs infrequently and is relatively mild enough to not immediately kill with fire. But path grappling past and tap strafing back onto your face with a Mastiff or Octane cranking 90s while maintaining ridiculous speeds bring up greater gameplay concerns. Okay, so here's the thing. Pathfinder grapples past you, right? Goes past you. All right, turn. Aim at the Pathfinder. He stops his movement in a tap strafe and then goes directly at you to shoot you with the shotgun. He has stopped his movement and is now in a predictable trajectory for you to shoot. People need to learn to play around the ability and the mechanic and not just remove it entirely, because it waters down the game. Mobility creep is something to be mindful of in this game. Fair point. I will give him that. Fair point. But it depends on the level of mobility creep and what that actually is. It's very nuanced and there's many things that could be. So it's hard to just say, mobility creep, bad. Yay! I don't like the term of the use creep here, however. Because there is certain mobility mechanics that were removed, like the ability to fly farther on a balloon, like way early into the game, which was not intended and was pretty broken in terms of how it broke the map geometry and how the map played in terms of speed. So that's something I could see. But I don't like the term mobility creep because it makes people think of power creep when it's not the same thing. Power creep is literally something's the same thing, but its numbers higher, so it's better. Mobility creep, you actually still have to do it yourself. You still have to be able to tap strafe. You still have to be able to do this shit for it to work. While many love the freedom that Apex's movement system affords, which is probably one of the main loves of the game, constraints are just as important, which is still also a fair point. I won't refute him on that. It's not surprising that mobility legends are highly popular. Why don't we just do more of that? Well, over time, and I'd say we're already seeing it, mobility creep opens up a Pandora's box. How is third party affected by mobility? Within a fight, how are front lines defended? How quickly can I close the gap on an enemy? The game is designed to work well with a finite number of mobility possibilities. Yes, you do need to have a situation where you will be able to defend against a multitude of attacks from various angles using the skill set that your team has, right? But let's just keep going. Fuck. This video is long enough. I feel it's important to note that limitations don't always equate to lowering skill gaps. There are skill gaps in working within constraints. One could argue that B-hop healing lowered the skill ceiling. This is a fucking devil's advocate. Players could make up for misplays with less constraints on their ability to safely heal. What B-hop healing is essentially, you know what a B-hop is. You've played FPS. B-hopping allows you to maintain your... It allows you to maintain your speed while being mobile, essentially. And when you are healing, most of the time you're slower than when you'd be moving generally, because healing to give yourself back health is seen as a dangerous activity. So what people learned is that if you bunny hopped while healing, you could maintain more mobility that way while also being safer with heals. So the argument of players could make up for misplays with less constraints on their ability to safely heal, I don't agree with, because what bunny hop healing did is once again allowed a movement tech that you still had to physically input to pull off, allowed you to get away and deal with third parties way more effectively than you can now. One of the bigger issues in the game is nobody wants to actually engage in a fight, because by the time you're actually fully engaged in that fight, another team that can hear you from like a fourth of the map away is already on their way. So by the time your fight's over, you're trying to heal, you're down and out of resources, somebody else is coming to pick up the pieces and take both of your team's shit. So if anything, if they wanted to deal with that, they could fix the issue of third parties with potential sound radius on weapons, but that's another thing, which probably has been talked about. But third partying is a big problem, and it's why you want mouse and controller players on your team to farm shields from long range with hit scan weapons like the charge rifle, so you can build your shields up without being in any direct danger from the team you're trying to fight or whoever the hell is close to you. Different types of skill expression are changed when we touch something like perfect air control, for better or worse. My opinion is worse on this matter. We'll see what you do, because it's still not implemented. You could change this, however. There still might be functionality to it, like you set up here, where you have the ability to iterate and invert on it. You said it shouldn't change some tech, like wall bounce redirecting. We'll see. But we need it on paper and in the game before we can actually really say, or actually pitchfork about it, right? We can give feedback to the discussion, but we can't actually say what it is until we see it. Sorry, I was about to sneeze. Players aren't consciously thinking about these things most of the time, but it's the summation of all the little things that help define the unique feel of Apex. True. If this was Octane Legends more so than it already is, fair. Can you imagine how much we'd have to buff defensive character abilities to stand a fighting chance? And a genuine question that I'd love to hear answers for: why do you think a backpack isn't included in the starter kits? It wasn't an arbitrary decision to leave it out. I think essentially what a backpack does, if you're not familiar with it, gives you extra inventory space. And at the start of the match, you have limited inventory space, and you're expected to scrounge to find a backpack so you can carry more supplies. In a Battle Royale game, it makes sense, but I don't know how their loot system works, but there are times when I guess that's the unlucky nature of a Battle Royale, where you're halfway through the game and you just don't have a backpack. Like, you're down by 4 to 6 slots versus everybody else in the map, so you just have that much less resource to be able to do fights with. And since the game's been trending more towards casual in terms of its balance and design, I guess it works because it's more of like a party game now. But from a competitive standpoint, I'm not super down with the whole backpack debate. I've thought about tap strafing a lot, and I'm well aware this decision will be met with adversity. I'm not a tap strafing specialist in any way. We discussed it quite a bit internally and consulted our best mouse and keyboard players as well as some pros. We're bringing in a handful in to play around with the changes to make sure other movement tech is caught in the crossfire. I know it's a contentious topic, and because of that, it's hard for me to feel great about the decision. I do think it's the right one, though. Hopefully this provided some context, and as always, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. As far as like a send-off in this discussion, I can understand the difficult situation to be in terms of balancing, especially when you have to think, because you don't want to think about it, but you have to consider I'm sorry. You have to consider the monetary impact. You have to consider how the controller player base feels. I feel like the majority of players are using controller on Apex. I mean, can we Google? Can we use Google? Apex PC versus console player base. Half the total plays on PS4 and the other half is evenly distributed under PC and Xbox. Granted, this is a random Reddit post from a year ago, so obvious grain of salt, but even if you give it even half and half, that means 75% of the player base is console bound. So you have to obviously make decisions that are good for your business, even though that means hurting the original fans of the game. So it's a very difficult decision for this guy to be in, and I don't envy it at all. And it's understandable why some of these choices are made. And because they won't split the inputs on Apex, they're just not going to. It's not a feasible business decision, design decision. They're not going to split a PC and keyboard, or keyboard and controller. They're just not. So taking all of that into consideration, removing tap strafing makes sense. It just fucking sucks overall, right? The idea of it just sucks overall. Jesus Christ, this video is 47 minutes. All right. Well, here you go, Husa. You wanted a video, and you fucking got it. Alright. That was my rant. That was my discussion. You can take it or leave it. You might care. You might not. But either way, I hope you have a good one. Bye.